Almost. Testing, testing. There we go. Thank you, team. All right. Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, August 11th, 2025. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg, and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7:01 p.m. A warm welcome and greetings are extended to councilors, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether they are physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers, as able, are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate or discussion is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior and or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite decorum over the course of the coming meeting. You can see that all councillors are in their seats in the council chamber in Listowel. Let us move to item 5 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council have full lives with engagement in their community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and, in so doing, avoid direct involvement in the consideration of or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point in the meeting should such interest be recognized. I note in my agenda materials that Councillor Johnston wishes to make a declaration. Councillor Johnston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll declare on the public meeting for the South Maitland River Drain, subsequently also the bylaw for it, 12.3, and the confirmatory. I'm an officer of a corporation that owns land in North Perth and Perth East on that drain.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnston. Anyone else wishing to make a declaration at this hour? I too will make a declaration tonight on item 11.1 pertaining to a request from United Way Perth Huron, and subsequently the confirmatory bylaw, item 17.1. And I'll ask the Deputy Mayor if he'll step into the chair on those occasions. I do so because I am employed by United Way Perth Huron. All right, Councillor Andreessen.
Good evening, Mayor Kiesenberg, Council, members of the public and staff. I am going to also declare on item 11.1 regarding the United Way Perth Huron a request for the use of Character Square, as I'm a volunteer and chair the community committee. And also on item 17.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else wishing to make a declaration? All right, seeing none, as chair of this meeting, I will manage the floor proceedings tonight, and largely in accord with our agenda and rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conferencing technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, we have Super Simon on duty tonight, and he can help us and you should it be needed. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. We're going to turn to item 6 on our agenda, and before we consider the resolution, the clerk and I have made a few adjustments to the agenda that we're going to propose. I'm going to ask Clerk Carter to share that with us. Clerk Carter.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Through you, the resolution would read that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as amended to add item 8.2, delegation from Scott Patterson of Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Bimania Dairy Limited related to item 9.2.1 on the agenda, and that current item 8.2 be renumbered 8.3.
All right, colleagues, everyone understand what we're doing there? We're inserting a new delegation. We're keeping it with the first delegation, 8.1, so it'll be numbered 8.2. That one's with Mr. Patterson, and then we're going to renumber 8.3, which is a public meeting from 8.2. So I have a resolution to that effect. Anyone looking to be our mover for this? Councillor Blazek, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Deputy Mayor Keller records a manual in favor vote. And Councillor Johnston, a manual in favor vote in the affirmative. Yeah. And with that, that's carried. Thank you. Colleagues, let's turn to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item or items, plural, from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. We have 11 items in the consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections that you'd like seen made to the minutes? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands waving at me with regards to extractions from that. So let's consider the resolution that's been prepared for us as follows. That consent items 7.1 to 7.11 be received for information, and the minutes of the July 21st, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move then to agenda item 8. We have 2 delegations, as you've heard from our agenda amendment, for those who have interest in council's business or authority. Remind, as always, the delegations that in accordance with this council's procedural bylaw and general rules, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. We might be really nice because Mr. Beard's with us tonight and give him a little bit of slack. A delegation is to present on on the topic that's been declared on the submitted request for delegation forms, and deviations from the topic are generally not acceptable to the chair or to this council. Decorum, as always, is required. Further to my request that we maintain a civil atmosphere of respect and courtesy, I'll remind that those who are delegating should not use the names of those who have not consented to such use. As item 8.1, our delegation tonight is by Phil Beard, General Manager of the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and we also have Councillor Duncan, who serves on that board and who apparently is going to assist Mr. Beard. I'm surprised you're not giving him a physical hand assist with moving the slides, because apparently Mr. Beard met a ladder recently and sustained some injury. Mr. Beard is going to present an update on services and service levels for programs that are offered by or to be offered by the authority in advance of a proposed renewal of an agreement in 2026 with this council and corporation. Mr. Beard, welcome. Councillor Duncan, when it's your time, jump in.
If you want to. Okay, welcome, Phil. I'm going to kind of go through the first slide here and help Phil out. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. We are appearing before council this evening to provide some additional background information regarding the renewal of the Memorandum of Understanding that the MVCA has prepared for council's consideration. We've included a letter from the MVCA's chair, Ed McGugan, outlining our request for council to consider redoing the MOU for services and programs for another 4 years. We have also included the draft MOU for council to provide feedback on. It is the same as the last MOU, except we have changed the word levy to cost apportionment. The province has changed the word in the Conservation Authorities Act. We have also attached a list of services and programs the MVCA will be continuing with for the next 4 years. There are no changes to the programs and services from the last agreement. MVCA will not change any services or programs without consulting with our member municipalities. The budget process will remain the same. A copy of MVCA's draft budget and cost apportionment will continue to be circulated to our member municipalities on an annual basis. This is a new provincial requirement. Phil will review the services and programs that MVCA plans to continue with and will outline which services are mandatory and which services are non-mandatory.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair Matt Duncan. Maitland Valley has 15 member municipalities. We have 3,270 square kilometers or 808,000 acres in our area of jurisdiction. We live in an area that has some of the best natural resources in Ontario. We have some of the best soil for growing crops and raising livestock in Ontario. The Maitland River is one of the best swimming fast fishing rivers in southern Ontario. Lake Ontario is one of the best beaches in Ontario for tourism, and Lake Huron is also a source of drinking water for many communities. And our woodlots are highly valued for their hardwoods by the forest industry. These natural resources, along with clean air and stable climate, are the foundation for our nice food system and our economy. Valley's vision is working for a healthy environment. And I'll walk you through some of our key services. Our key services are watershed health and monitoring and assessment service. We monitor to understand the current state of forests and river systems in the watershed. We do this to determine the health of the watershed. This helps us to focus our limited resources where they can be most effective. And you can't manage what you don't measure. Our watershed stewardship services are focused on providing support to landowners to help them restore the health of forests, streams, and soil. We're there a technical resource to support them. We help landowners apply for funding from programs. We meet with the landowner, help them plan their project, apply for funding, and coordinate the planting of trees and shrubs with the contractor. The cost apportionment support for stewardship services provides Maitland Valley with a base amount of stable funding. Without this support, we would not be able to deliver stewardship programs. And this baseline funding allows us to leverage other funding sources to do work in the watershed. Stable funding helps us to keep experienced, qualified staff that landowners trust, and it helps us to develop good long-term relationships with landowners, community groups, and funding partners. And because we're a small organization, the staff and stewardship also work in other service areas such as conservation areas and flood safety. Some of the key stewardship practices that we're working on with farmers are cover crops to keep the land covered during the winter, stream buffers, and stormwater management to help control the runoff from intense rainfall events. We also help to deliver the Huron and Wellington Clean Water projects. This is our only Category 2 service. The Huron Clean Water project is funded by the County of Huron. We assist landowners, community groups with applications, present projects to the review committee, inspect completed projects, and issue payments. And the Huron Clean Water project is delivered by a team of stewardship staff from Maitland Valley and the Oswego Bayfield Conservation Authority. Moving on to our conservation areas, we have 28 conservation areas, 4,000 acres of land, forests, floodplains, wetlands, and river valleys. We have 3 staff that look after all of these 28 conservation areas, except for the Falls Reserve Conservation Area, which has 2 staff. These 3 staff also look after all our buildings and equipment. Many of our conservation areas are used for recreation by the public, and the use of our key conservation areas has increased significantly over the past 4 years. Maitland Valley operates 2 campground facilities, one at Falls Reserve in Ben Miller, and the other one, the Wanganash Campground, which is in North Huron. These campgrounds must fund all their operations and infrastructure with the revenue that is raised through user fees. Natural hazard services, we are responsible for dealing with flooding, erosion, and the key services include flood monitoring and emergency response, providing natural hazard planning support to municipalities, assisting municipalities to obtain funding to keep their floodplain mapping up to date, reviewing development in floodplains, river valleys, and wetlands, and also to help look after the flood control infrastructure, such as the Listowel Conduit and the Godrich Bluffs Stabilization Project. Over the past 25 years, we've had to change our flood monitoring system to focus more on rainfall events than spring melt. We have over $500,000 worth of equipment in the field, and that flood forecast system has to be monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round for potential runoff events that may cause flooding. Too far. There we go. The Drinking Water Source Protection Program is a mandatory program that focuses on helping municipalities to safeguard the area around their wellheads and intake protection zones. This program is currently funded 100% by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. And I'll now turn it over to Councillor Duncan to close the presentation.
Thanks, Will. Once the MVCA has received comments from all 15 municipalities on the draft agreement stating they support the agreement, we will circulate the agreement for signing. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the matter with council. We look forward to receiving your feedback and answering any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you to our delegates. We're just having a little AV patch in here, so let's hang on for a second. There we go. New microphone installed to make sure that we're hearing you well, Mr. Beard, and your successors at that microphone tonight. Colleagues, any questions or first comments for Mr. Beard on his presentation and that which was supported by Councillor Duncan? Well, I have a question. So I've taken note that Maitland Valley Conservation plays a role in the provision of the Huron Clean Water Project. It seems that we don't have the same in Perth County, and so I'm interested in getting a comment from you, if you have one, about what might be required to get Clean Water Project up and running in Perth County.
I think Perth County does have a clean water project now, but they're running it themselves rather than it being delivered through the Conservation Authority.
Okay. I haven't heard all that much about it. Okay, thank you. Something for me to learn. Anyone else with a question? All right, Mr. Beard, thank you very much for coming in tonight. We appreciate your presentation to us. There was a request essentially for a consent from this council to move forward with the agreement. Is that something that we need to sort of turn over to staff for a report? Should we be considering this in a different way? CEOs, no?
How does council and staff want to move forward? Are we comfortable with moving forward tonight, or do you want time for comments and feedback after reading it more? Or
Okay, CEOs, no?
I mean, it's really open to council's questions or concerns about the agreement. However, since there's no change from the last agreement, I would suggest that council just direct staff to prepare a bylaw, bringing the agreement back for council's consideration.
Okay. Anyone object on council to giving that direction to staff? All right, I think we should probably do that formally though. So we should have a resolution to the effect that council directs staff to bring forward a bylaw to authorize the endorsement of the agreement with Maitland Valley for the upcoming term. Anything that I'm missing in that stipulation? All right. Let's call for a vote. Councillor Duncan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. If the clerks are ready. And that is carried. Thank you again, Mr. Beard. Thanks so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you for your time and your support.
All right, let's turn to agenda item 8.2. For this, we have a delegation from Patterson, who's with us from Patterson Planning Consultants. He wishes to address item 9.2.1 on this evening's agenda. Mr. Patterson, welcome.
Good evening, council and staff. Scott Patterson, Patterson Planning Consultants. As the mayor had noted here tonight regarding 9.2.1, which is the draft plan of subdivision for Bedmania Dairy, the meeting tonight does not involve a public meeting, so I'm just here to let council know that we have reviewed the staff report recommendations. 100% in support of that report this evening. This application has been in process since 2022, which is a little bit hard to believe. So we're hoping we can move things along tonight and get this moving for Mr. Byman. If there's any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them, or if any questions come about through Mr. Garland's presentation, both Mr. Byman are here and we're available for councils at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Anyone immediately have questions pertaining to this item before we actually cover it on the agenda? All right. Thanks, Mr. Patterson, for making yourself available to us tonight. All right, let's turn next to the matter of a public meeting. Our agenda indicates as item 8.3 that we will hold a public meeting pertaining to a matter under the Drainage Act related to the South Maitland River drain to receive an engineer's report. For the purpose of executing this public meeting, I use my discretion as head of council to announce a recess that will last the duration of the public meeting. Council is in recess. All right, now we turn to the public meeting, and of course the clerk should note that Councillor Johnston has exited for the purpose of his earlier declaration. So tonight we're going to consider the report for the South Maitland River Drain Tanda Crossing, Lost Crossing, and maintenance schedule. This is a public meeting that will look at this report in some detail, and any of those who are present who are assessed landowners, I extend a warm welcome to you tonight. First, we will hear from the engineer and who's going to present the report and who prepared the report, and that is Brandon Widener from Street Associates. Mr. Widener, the podium is yours.
So, good evening, everybody. Tonight we have a very large drain. It's called the South Maitland River Drain. So, some of you may remember we did do a project upstream of this in 2023 called the Lil Drain. This is much further downstream. This encompasses some of Huron East, also encompasses West Perth and Perth East. So, we have a 4-township project, and it has essentially 3 components. So, that's why you see the name Tanda Crossing, Lost Crossing, and a new maintenance schedule. So, what started this report is the Terpstras, who are operating in Tanda Farms, have asked for a crossing. Their farms located near what you guys call Silver's Corners. Upstream, there is another farm operation operated by Losses. They also would like a new crossing. In turn with that, the township staff I believe put forward a motion to update the maintenance schedule on the whole drain. So this drain is quite large, as you can see on the watershed map. It encompasses approximately 22,300 hectares or 55,000 acres. So this is the largest report our office has done in some time. But that being said, the parts that we're doing are rather small in comparison. So what you're seeing is you're seeing 2 low-level crossings getting constructed. So there's independent drawings for those. There's drawings 5 and 6. So if Sarah goes to those, you can see what we're actually building. So on the Tanda crossing, the one for Terpstras, we have a quad type low level. So this is the first one. So this is 4 approximately 1,600 millimeter diameter pipes, which are arch pipes to limit their height. This is in an area downstream. They currently cross this. The current crossing is in very poor repair. So we have 4 pipes going in. They are then totally encased with concrete. There is then a concrete slab on top, which is approximately 80 to 100 feet long and approximately 20 feet wide at the top. The second crossing is further upstream in an area where the drain is actually a little wider. So we have 5 pipes being proposed in that one, but they are smaller diameter pipes. That is the gist of what we're doing, each of those separate crossings as well. You'll see every year we're moving 3 crossings that are in disrepair, which are upstream of this. So 2 are for the Losses, and another one I believe is for a Love family. So those crossings are also being removed. They're not used. They're impeding water. This drain is quite wide. It's in some areas 8 to 10 meters wide. Maintenance hasn't been done very often. The maintenance that is done is beaver dam removal, brush removal. So as a municipality appointed us on these projects, they then looked for the request to update the maintenance schedule on this existing drain, which hasn't been done since the 50s and 70s. So there was 2 reports done on this, one in 59, and then there was another report which they rely on done in 1977. As you know, there's been 7 of these land use changes, developments in these areas. So they reached out because this involves multiple 4 townships, had to go to the drainage tribunal. We received their direction on March 4th to update the new maintenance schedule. That's what's being proposed today. You can see the cost of this work is all combined in one construction schedule that includes all new maintenance schedules. So the total cost of the project is $477,500. That being said, it's divided up among everybody, and that includes the cost for the new maintenance schedule is buried inside that cost. So when you turn to page 9, assessment for construction, that lists what everyone's paying on the whole project. Now, one thing council can, I guess, also understand this new schedule. So we have pages 9 to 32, which are the assessments to the individual properties. There's a couple of communities in this. Milverton is one of them. It is block assessed. So block assessing means we've taken that whole community and it's on pages 3 and 4. They're shown, so everybody inside the shaded area is assessed one number. That allows two things. It allows the municipality to easier divide up the maintenance costs, so they can do it either by acreage or tax assessment as well in the future. Every time there's a severance completed, these reports all need to be updated. When it's block assessed, that takes that component away. It doesn't need to be updated as it's assessed separately. That being said, the drain is then broken into 4 components for maintenance. So there's 4 separate maintenance schedules depending on where the municipality decides to do maintenance or where maintenance is being done. So the next pages, which are 34 to the first section is obviously the largest because that's the part that starts in here in the east. So pages 33 to 57, that's only for the section of drain, which we have stationed from 0 to 2,725. So if the municipality elects to do maintenance on that section, they use that schedule. As you proceed up the drain, so the next station is 27 to 6,600. Obviously, the people in Huron fall off. It's more of the northwest Perth east. That keeps happening, so we have 4 separate components. So that makes a more accurate maintenance schedule. That being said, the percentages you see are rather small, as there is so many of them. Rough cost for this project, I believe. So one thing with this, as there's so many names, we have approximately 22 pages of assessments. Typically on our reports, you see an insert at the back, which says grantable net assessment. That's another 32 pages we didn't want to print for every report. So everybody that's tax ag gets 1/3 off. So your assessments to an ag property after grant are about $3.50 an acre. That's what it works out to. It's slightly more money than the last project we did, which was on the Boyle. That was a smaller crossing, but it had less watershed. So that's what's being proposed tonight. It's a thick report with a lot of information, but essentially it's 2 crossings and a new schedule being updated. I know it looks intimidating with a 100-page report. And I'm sure there's lots of people here, as I know staff have been fielding lots of calls on this. Because a report like this it's difficult for us, but it wouldn't be achievable without the staff you guys have. It's a lot of work to compile all these names, acres, and properties. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteman. Let's turn to those who may have come to this meeting for the purpose of asking questions or who are expressing comments about the proposed report and its adoption. So the opportunity is available to anyone who has come for that purpose. I believe we still want to sign in sheets, right? Yeah, so certainly if you do decide to come to the microphone to ask a question or make comments, we do ask you to record your name and contact information on a sign-in sheet that's on a table right at the back of the room beside we're in front of a very old typewriter, which is kind of a cool little feature in our council chamber. So, opportunity is open now. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of the opportunity to ask questions or make comments? As you come forward first. We can follow up. Just introduce yourself and tell us where you are. Press the button on the.
Oh, yeah, I'm a hard hearing, so if I come a bit, I am Richard Bowden. I have a farm on the 12th of concession of Elma. The Maitland River runs right through our 50 acres there, and I was a little concerned that when we got the assessment that it wasn't in the right name. The name it's in has never been under that particular rule, and I know there's a couple other farms that are in the same predicament. I contacted Scott, and he said there has been something like that. But what concerns me is that farm has been in the family name for almost 100 years, and it has never been. It was under Broughton, it was under an L Broughton, and there's never been an L Broughton, as far as I know. But that's my concern. I guess I'd like to ask the engineer, what do you consider the benefit, like on the assessment? We have a benefit to it, and I would entertain a farmer here that has a river running through his farm that's not much of a benefit. But I would just like to ask what you consider the benefit of having the river run through our farm.
That's it.
No, I have a couple other questions. Okay. No, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, that's just, and the other question was I was wondering, and I know this concerns some of the neighbors too. Uh, if inadvertently a new crossing maybe helps us out, but I'm not sure why the rest of the. And I know that Scott explained that the water comes downstream, and we're all we're all liable for the water. But I'm a little unsure why everybody should have to pay for the crossing, which we're never going to use. And if you've ever seen the Maitland River in full flood, it really doesn't do us much benefit. And when the water's low, it's it's I just don't see the whole financial responsibility falling on. To me, if they get a river crossing and they pay for it, then we should have a meeting at the river, and every meter water runs through, we should benefit from it too. It's hardly fair for one to get all this and not the other. I guess that's.
Okay. Mr. Widener, did you want to come forward and address the questions that were asked by Mr. Bowden?
So I guess a couple things. So I'll apologize right up start. There's names wrong. We received names from the township. We try to do them the best we can. When the township does send names, sometimes they come middle, first, last. So that sometimes leads to an issue. Other than that, end of the day, the names are there for information purposes. It relies on roll numbers. Some townships no longer let us even print names. And then it makes my job very difficult because nobody knows their roll number, and I can't figure out where people live. But if there are names that are wrong, and the day it falls on the roll number, we apologize for that. We do try our best. With a project this large, it's difficult to check. On a smaller drain, yes, it's much simpler. As for the benefit, when you get into the benefit on these, so what we've done, when a project's completed, as you've seen with us in the past, benefits based on length. It's the length of drain on that property. So the Broughton property, I don't have the distance in front of me, it's on the plan, but there's a length of drain on that property. So benefit is what you call better control of surface and subsurface water. So his benefit is that when the drain's clean and functioning, doesn't run as lands, has these adjacent to it. It's no different than a smaller open ditch or when you see a tile. The benefit is the water's under the ground. That's what we're paying. Regarding the crossing, um, both these are existing crossings under the Act, so they were assessed out before they were constructed. When you look at the Tanda crossing, it was constructed in the 80s. Everyone paid a portion. That crossing has failed. It's no different than we do it on a smaller drain. Yes, this is a larger scale. Being a larger scale, when we typically do the farm crossings that you've seen in the last, I guess, almost 10 years I've been coming up here, those crossings are designed at a standard where you can drive over them every day, typically. These ones you're proposing today, they're not. These are low-level crossings, so you can't cross them many days a year. The water floods over top. If you look at the previous one we did it was called the German crossing on the Boyle, it floods every spring, approximately 6 or 8 feet above the structure we're proposing. So they're not being built to the same standards as you see on the other drains where people pay. That being said, we've assessed landowners accordingly. So if you take the Tanda property, for instance, their assessment in the book is $82,000. They're still paying a large portion. When you look upstream with some of these people paying benefit, a lot of that cost is to generate this new schedule. So there's two components. If we were just doing the crossing themselves, I wouldn't have to do all this work to get the movement schedule. So you have to separate the work accordingly. And when you look at this, the losses have came forward and they've decided they have an existing crossing, it's in poor shape, but they've also consolidated their crossings and only asked for one, where they are actually entitled to ask for 3. So that's another thing for council to consider. But, I guess I don't have any further comments regarding that question, but if there's any other, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Widener. Anyone else in those who've assembled in the council chamber who wish to ask a question or make a comment about this chair? If you would introduce yourself and tell us where you live.
I'm John Eastcamp. I'm from the concession 12, and I'm east of 23. I'm a neighbor to Richard Broughton, and he has a low-level crossing that goes right to the bottom. I have a low-level crossing that goes right to the bottom. And the last time we did the drain, I asked the question, how many of these are there that have to be maintained? With no answer. So I keep tonight to get the report, and there's none left on the table.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thanks. Mr. Widener, do you have any comments to make with regards to this delegate's comments, questions?
So I guess as for the reports, we provide the municipality with about a dozen copies. They do have a PDF available. I know they had some in the back table or in the room. I guess my answer is people have to share, or it's available online. The municipality can print them off. As for the crossings, so when we received this project, we didn't have the typical drain meetings, as obviously there's hundreds of people involved. So what was done was the municipal staff reached out to people along the drain. We had most people along the drain up to where it reaches the Boyle drain. So everyone along that drain was essentially contacted and asked if they wanted a new crossing or one improved. That being said, the losses came forward and asked for one as well. They weren't the original requesters, it was Terpstras. I guess if the landowner wants a new crossing, he can ask at any time. But we have not received any more additional requests.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? Okay, so at this point, I believe we're in a position where we can adjourn this meeting. Any reason not to adjourn this meeting, Clerk Carter? Right. So let's consider this public meeting adjourned. All right, we should perhaps invite, well, maybe not yet. I mean, we're going to deal with the drain matters here before we invite Councillor Johnston back into the room. Okay, so let's do that. I'm declaring that we have now returned to open council meeting, and we have two resolutions to consider regarding item 8.3, the South Maitland River Drain. The first is as follows: the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the South Maitland River Drain Tanda Crossing, Lowe's Crossing, and Maintenance Schedule report dated July 14th, 2025, prepared by Spree Associates. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Enston. Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Kellum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And the second item pertaining on this train is as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold Court of Revision for the South Maitland River Drain Tanda Crossing, Moose Crossing, and Maintenance Schedule on September 22nd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. and that staff be directed to request one member each from Perth East, West Perth, and Huron East to sit on this Court of Revision. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Roth?
Good evening, Mayor Todd and Council and staff and public. I'm just wondering, due to the size of this drain, as to whether or not our council chambers will be satisfactory for potential number of people that could be coming from all four of the affected municipalities.
Okay, thank you. That's a reasonable question to put forward. Let's turn, it looks like Mr. Wyden may have an answer, so let's turn to him first.
Well, I guess one question I can ask, typically with a court of revision, sometimes municipalities only allow written appeals. Maybe this is an opportunity to do that. Therefore, it has to be in so we know what we're dealing with. On a project this side, I believe the written appeals have to be in 10 days before the court of revision. Maybe Sarah can elaborate on that. Might make everyone's lives easier.
Clerk Carter, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. That's correct. When you send out the notice of sitting of Court of Revision, we do ask for written appeals. In this instance, I would stick to only allowing written appeals.
Okay. So then what would happen in practice is there's a deadline for the written appeals that they must be received by a certain date. And if there was intention from those who are authors of said appeals to come to sort of witness what happens, then we may have some indication, I assume, of whether we need to have a location change to accommodate.
Correct. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, it would give us an idea of possible attendance and allow us to flex as needed to accommodate everybody.
Okay. All right. Let's turn to Councillor Boswick.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. And so if we are only allowing written submissions or written appeals, does every property owner impacted get a notification in enough time to do that?
Clerk Carter.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, yes, the Drainage Act does specify the time that we have to send out the notices. So we have to send out the notices, and then the Court of Revision has to follow within 20 and 30 days after that notice is sent out.
So there's some nice tight timelines, is what I'm hearing. All right, Councillor Rothwell.
If I may further, Mayor Todd, thank you. Just, and not to get too far into the weeds on this, but my understanding is that our Court of Revision would be recorded just as our standard council meetings are. Is that correct?
Clerk Carter.
Typically, they are not recorded. We could make a special circumstance to live stream them if we needed to.
Further, I'm going to suggest it may be appropriate to do so, given the number of property owners that are involved that may, as our engineer has suggested, many of these
relatively small properties that may have little or no significant effects financially or otherwise, but they may want to hear the importance of what this means for them. So I'm going to suggest that if it's possible, that we may be able to do that and make that as part of our written notification to give an option if that is available to do so. Thank you.
Makes sense. Thank you. Staff seems to be concurring with that. Mr. Wagner, go ahead.
One additional thing for consideration. So these are both two low-level crossings in which the owners would actually like them constructed this fall. So I don't know if the municipality can move forward and at least direct staff so we call for tenders. At least then we have a contractor secured. If the quarter revision goes smoothly and we can execute the project, maybe Scott can elaborate on that. But these have to be built in a time of low water.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Richardson, did you want to comment at all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, the landowners they would like to proceed this year for sure. So if we could call for tenders and award it provisionally, that they don't start the work till after the third reading of the bylaw. I think that would work well for us.
Does council have any objection to this strategy? Councillor Rothman.
Thanks, Mark Todd, through you. So I think because the majority of the properties in both of these crossings are in North Perth would be the lead on that. Is that correct? And that's the reason why we would be undertaking that. And do we need any approval from the three other municipalities to do so? Thank you.
North Perth's lead as a request that came from North Perth. So as for the other municipalities, they are all on outlet costs. There's some benefit maybe if there's a drain on those sections, but as a whole, it's all outlet. The assessments are all calculated very similarly. I believe Sarah can elaborate, but I believe the other municipalities are passing provisional bylaws, I believe.
Clerk,
Through you, Mayor Kiessenberg, once we provisionally adopt our bylaw and send our information to the other municipalities, then we will do the same.
okay. So there's still a little bit of delay that's involved in terms of working with our partnering municipalities here. That's not going to muck up the timelines, is it? No. Okay. Thank you. But it sounds like there's a desire. Do we wait until those other municipalities have given their provisional consent before we do any tendering or RFP or other portion of the procurement process, or not?
CAO still may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because we're the lead municipality, it falls on us.
Okay. CAOs no. I'd like to clarify too that if we proceed with a tender, we wouldn't have to award the tender until we're through the provisional requirements of the Drainage Act. So we would just have a process, let the tender, have the bidders submit bids, we can even open the tender, but we wouldn't award the tender until all the legislative requirements of the Drainage Act was completed. But they could run simultaneously. It's pretty standard contractual stuff in procurement for sure. All right, thank you. Councillor Rothwell, one last go here.
Yes, thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And again, the questions are just simply because this is a significant size drain and there's a lot of coordination. And frankly, I want to thank our staff and council that certainly agrees to move forward. I believe the recommendations we have from our staff and consultant are very appropriate. And I want to thank our staff and council agrees that we would go forward on that basis and frankly to make sure that everything works, that everyone's informed so we don't have a problem with lack of coordination. And I think the kudos to, as our consulting engineer said, not only to myself, but our staff here to make this all happen, as well as the staff from the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have a motion on the floor that's been duly moved and seconded. Might be a good idea to actually have the vote, so why don't we pull the trigger on that? And that is carried. Thank you. Now we can invite Councillor Johnston back. Thank you, Councillor Anstep, for that service. right, that brings us to item 9 on our agenda, reports from departments and department leads. First up, an item from the operations department as item 9.1. In item 9.1.1, Council is being provided with an opportunity to receive and explore a recently released draft of a road rationalization study report issued by consultants from Perth County and looking at the state of ownership and responsibility for a range of roads. This evening, our own manager of operations is not present, but we have been blessed by the attendance of two of the county's key officials here. First, Executive Director of Public Works John McClellan, and second, Director of Public Works Bill Wilson. I'll get it right here. So what I'll do is I'll invite both of those to come forward and present as they feel is warranted, and you may call any other experts that you wish to call in the process of your report. So please come forward, Mr. McClellan.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, and good evening, members of council. I'm John McClellan from the County Public Works Department, and as Mayor Todd said, it's Bill Wilson, Director of Public Works, who is with me tonight. Online or virtually, we do have David Perks and Matthew Buckram of Tatham Engineering, and they're here virtually to present our road rationalization study. Back in 2020, County Council approved a road rationalization process and framework intended to assign ownership and responsibility for certain roads to the most appropriate municipal authority. This process was developed from a guiding document published by the Ontario Good Roads Association and involves a systematic review comprised of 3 steps: a criteria-based assessment, a principle-based assessment, and a special considerations review. In early 2024, the county received submissions from the local municipalities for roads which were to be considered for upgrading. As well, all current county roads were to be evaluated through the rationalization process to determine any potential downgrade of roads. Importance to you in the submission from North Perth included Line 84 from Highway 23 to Perth Road 147, Line 87 from Road 165 to Perth Road 140, Line 88 from Highway 23 to Perth Road 140, Road 140 from Perth Line 72 to Perth Line 86, Road 158 from Perth Line 72 to Line 84, and Road 165 from Perth Line 86 to Perth Line 88. Given that this was our first iteration of the road rationalization process, the county retained Tatham Engineering Limited to provide guidance, analysis, subject matter expertise, and a draft report which they're here to present to you this evening. Although this road rationalization exercise did not recommend any of the North Perth submissions, it does recognize a desire for truck bypasses around Lister detailed in the North Perth Transportation Master Plan. Most of the local roads North Perth submitted form part or all of the preferred truck routes. And again, while the study does not recommend any of these for upload at this time, there is merit to these routes and understanding that a bypass may be a near-term priority. The county would support and collaborate with North Perth on a study or review as a separate process outside of the scope of the road rationalization process. To date, the recommendations have been presented to County Council, but nothing has been approved. Our next steps are to present to the remaining 3 local municipalities and receive feedback and comments. We will then compile these comments and report back to County Council, most likely by the end of the year. Council would then direct staff, should they want to undertake phase 2 of the rationalization process, which is implementation. And pardon the pun, this is really where rubber hits the road. And we find out the financial costs and impacts should the recommended changes be approved. I'm now going to turn it over to David Perks at Tatham Engineering to go over the road rationalization plan.
Thank you, John. Hope everybody can hear me clearly. Had things a little bit spotty every once in a while here, so if you can't hear me, let me know. Throw something in the chat. But what we'll do is the intent here tonight is just to go through the process or go through the process that we went through, the road rationalization process, and the methodology we went and how we established that, what that looked like, and in looking at the county road network. If we go to the next slide there, the overall purpose of this of this study was to make sure that the county road network is functioning as it's supposed to, and that the roads within it are serving a county purpose, recognizing that there are different purposes for different roads, whether it's a county road versus a local road. And the county road and the purposes that they serve, it serves all the municipalities, and it's county-wide. And we have to understand that I'm sure everyone understands, there's limited resources in maintaining these roads. So you want to make sure that the road network is right-sized, is the term that we like to use, because if a county road isn't properly maintained, then it starts to deteriorate. It starts to lose its functionality, its ability to serve the municipalities, and ultimately, what we know about road networks is that they do support economic growth. And if the road network is falling to disrepair, it's not serving what it's supposed to, then that has other implications wider, and in terms of the municipalities that within the county, in terms of economic growth, economic impacts. Go to the next slide. So the study objective is first to identify which roads should be county roads and which should be local roads. That's that's sort of the underlying purpose of this is to make sure that the roads are in the right column. If you have a county road, that it's serving a county's purpose, it's there, and a local road is serving the local purpose. And this ensures appropriate accountability to the road users. So if they're on a county road, they can expect there are certain expectations that will be met, versus if they're on a local road, there's a different set of requirements and function of a local road that is just as important, but they're different. And then by doing this, you allow for the application of the appropriate standards and practices. So a local road isn't being maintained to a county standard, and a county standard county road isn't being maintained to a local standard. The roads are being treated and maintained as appropriate. And overall with this is to right size your county road network, then the resources that you have can be focused onto the right roads, to ensure that you've got a healthy county road system and that's supporting the municipalities. So the first step there is what is the role of a county road? And they do tend to serve higher traffic volumes. All vehicle types, they're designed to have to everything from motorcycles to transport trucks. So there's a wide range of design vehicles that they're intended to serve. And also trip purposes, whether they're commercial purposes, whether they're recreational purposes, commuting, they're intended to serve all of those purposes. They also accommodate longer range distance travel, whether that's within the county or to destinations beyond the county. Also intended to help people get into your county, but also to get through the county to other destinations. And that's the connectivity. It also connects activity areas, whether that's whether it's settlement areas of employment, recreational areas, within and external to the county. And sort of the context of this and how this is how we're doing this and why we can do this and why it should be looked at is the county does have the authority through the Municipal Act to establish, maintain, add to or remove designated roads to and from the county road system, with the intent that it's to serve the county and the municipalities within it. John touched a little bit on this. We started with this with the Ontario Good Roads Association. They have a set of criteria and steps for road rationalization. We looked at that. We looked at a few other counties that have had this done. Dufferin County and Grey County, which we were actually involved with to some degree. Simcoe County and Oxford County, which we weren't. But we looked at all of how they did theirs. What were the principles and criteria that they used to just have a broader look at what's been done, what works, what doesn't work, what might work for Perth County, and what doesn't. So the road rationalization essentially goes through 3 steps. The first 2 are more the first step, especially criteria assessment. It's more of a numbers. It looks at number of trucks on the road, number of vehicles on the road, speed limits, things like that. That they're sort of a hard-based criteria, but that doesn't always just spit out a perfect road network. There's limits to what that is because you have to look at it at road sections. So there are points awarded to each criteria and a threshold met to say if is that county road or not. Step 2 is the principal assessment. It's sort of a step back, a higher bird's eye view to look at the road network, what each road is doing. Also looks at the criteria versus the principle, and when you put those 2 together, you start to come together with the road network because the criteria is not going to hit everything. The principle is sort of another layer that you put on top that looks more like, as I said, like more of a bird's eye view to make sure there's no gaps in the road network, that nothing's being dropped that shouldn't be dropped or added that's adding something that you don't want into the county road network, like redundancy. So we'll just go through quickly the criteria of the criteria assessment in terms of what criteria were selected for Perth County. There were on some of the I'm sure you've read the report. There's a lot of criteria that were used by different jurisdictions. We narrowed them down. There are some that we felt that didn't apply to Perth or didn't apply. A lot of them took them out because they just really weren't something that should determine if something was a road network. But we've come down with 8 criteria that were considered the most crucial in terms of determining the road network. The first is your upper tier or urban center upper tier connector service. So roads that are connecting your urban settlement areas, those are the ones that, that's where population is, that's where perhaps employment is. You want to make sure that they're well connected, and if there's the roads that are serving those connections. Also, if they're providing connection to providing connection from one of your urban centers to a highway, to the provincial highway system, and complementing it in that way, those also were considered important criteria. How we did this and how we applied the threshold, we looked at the official plan, the different urban settlement areas, serviced urban areas and villages, and that's how we assigned which would get how many points in the threshold. A couple others, so there's heavy industrial service. So this is of course important, commercial wise, especially if you have heavy industrial areas, you have greater truck volumes. Trucks are hard on roads. So if they're serving these areas, it's important that you're in terms of your economic growth and getting goods and services in and out of your urban areas and industrial areas that gets captured in our criteria assessment. Barrier service is if there's a barrier within your county, whether it's a river or an escarpment or railway, something that you need to get people across. A county road provides one of the criteria is to provide service that's parallel to that barrier until there's a point to cross. So that's another criteria that is important. So because it provides connectivity in your within your county, make sure there's no areas that are cut off. Traffic speed. So county roads should typically have higher speed limits. Going back to one of the purposes of the county road network is to high volumes of traffic at higher speeds, getting them through the county and to their destinations, whether it's within or without the county. Traffic volume, of course, county roads, again, high traffic volumes are higher traffic volumes. So there's a criteria, there are points awarded to roads that are carrying those higher traffic volumes. Then there's the continuity, whether it's providing within Perth County, so it's providing continuous service through the county, whether it's north-south or east-west. There's points for that, for the roads that are doing that. And of course, if it's connecting to a county road outside of Perth, so whether it's Wellington or Oxford, if it's connecting there, so you've got service again that's getting people in and out of the county from the jurisdictions that are surrounding it. And then there's also urban bypass. There are certain areas, Listowel in terms of North Perth, where perhaps there should be a bypass, or whether it's serving a bypass function to avoid an urban area because the volumes are trying to get through, and they're clogging up an urban area. So there are points awarded for providing that bypass function. So there's just a summary of the 8 criteria we just ran through. There's 8 of them. The points that are awarded based on different thresholds. So that first one, for instance, urban center, if it's not connecting, then it gets 0 points. If it's connecting one of the settlement areas, then it's 2, or one of your service area gets higher points. In terms of heavy industry service, traffic volumes are different thresholds in context of what we observed on the county road network. The higher the volumes, the higher points that were awarded. Some of them, barrier service is just a yes or no, so they either score a 0 or 0.5. Same with continues within Perth or beyond Perth, or if it's providing a bypass, it's just 0 or 1 points. So if you were to get max, it's 17.5 points. That would be the maximum score if they scored the highest. For consideration of a county road, if you're greater or equal to 6 points, then under the criteria portion, then that should be considered, at least initially, as a county road. That threshold is fairly consistent across what we've seen with OGRA and with other counties, is that 6 points. It's a bit of a balance. You don't want to go too high or too low, or you're dropping everything out of your road network, or you're loading everything into your road network. So it's setting that threshold in the points is a bit of a critical piece of the puzzle there. So step 2 is where this is the stuff that doesn't necessarily get caught in the principle, because in the criteria, the criteria assessment, essentially we look a lot at road sections where the principles, we start taking a wider or higher level view of it. And so is it providing appropriate north, south, or east, west service? So we're looking at a whole road network or whole road section or corridor, rather than this little piece or that little piece. Is it complementing the provincial highway system? Is it providing direct, succinct, intuitive road system? So does it make sense? High degree of connectivity. So is it actually serving more than just one small area? Is it serving something that it's connecting more than just a tiny spot? It's something it's more far-reaching. It's also providing a shortest practical route. That's sort of self-explanatory. An important one here is does not provide redundant or parallel service. So you don't want 2 county roads that are running right beside each other, because you just split the traffic across 2, or one road's getting all of it, the other one's not. You want to try and eliminate as much redundancy as you can, because you're just splitting your resources over a number of roads that are providing the exact same service. They don't extend through urban downtown areas. Now, the issue here is a county road that goes through a downtown area, the function of the road changes entirely, where county road, again, is moving high volumes through. Once you get into a downtown area, then you're looking more at road connectivity, or sort of access to adjacent properties. You're looking at access to storefronts if you're in a downtown. You got on-street parking, a very different feel, which is not really matching up with a county road. So the principle is that if it's not running through a downtown, then it's that's something that should be considered. rather than if it is running through downtown, then maybe that piece of road has a better function as a local road rather than an urban road, and then being capable of being improved and or maintained to a county standard. So these are the principles that we look at after. So we run through the criteria, we get our threshold, we run through this, and we assign. Again, these answers are more yes or no, and then they get a point for each. Is a yes or no. So in this case, if you have 5 of the 8 principles satisfied, then it should be considered for a county road. So that's fine. Yeah, so the county road system, there's 39 county roads, 89 road sections that we assessed for 496 kilometers. Within North Perth, there's 11 county roads that were looked at, 21 road sections for 138 kilometers. And as John had mentioned, the county had asked municipalities if there are any roads that they would like included in this assessment, so we could look at them and determine, are these roads that are serving a county purpose or are they roads that should remain in the local jurisdiction. So overall throughout the county, there are 11 roads, 14 sections identified for a total of 78 kilometers. There were 6 road sections within North Perth that were identified. These are the road sections here that John had run through earlier. So we went through, these maps are actually shown in the report. So there's the existing road inventory, what the road network looks like. Then there's a map that has, once you layer the criteria and the principles, what the results of that look like. And then that's where we come in with step 3, because step 1 and 2 are going to look at those things that we've just spoken about. Special considerations, this is where you get the Perth flavor, the things that are considered that perhaps this isn't capturing because there's something specific to Perth. This is where the county staff input really comes in, because they know things that might not be captured in the steps 1 and 2 of the assessment. So we take this final look, like maybe the criteria and the principles say this should be transferred to the municipality, but no, maybe not, because it's serving this function that's not captured. It's a very unique function for this section of road, so we want to keep that in the county road network. So in terms of the results, now this is step 1 criteria. So you can see that 22 of the 89 road sections don't meet the criteria of a county road. So that's a bit jarring when you first see that. Like 28% of the road system, based on the criteria, is not meeting it. And then on the flip side, there were 3 local roads that could be considered as county roads based on the assessment. This is just on step 1. So within North Perth, there were 7 road sections that do not meet the criteria of a county road. Now again, that's just on the criteria. That's not when we look at the principle and the special considerations afterward. And then there was 1 local road that line 84 that passed that threshold in terms of the criteria assessment. This line 84. Now you can see when you hit the principal assessment, all of a sudden we drop from 22 roads to 11 roads that do not meet. So we're starting to capture the gaps that the criteria miss, the principal captures. And so it drops that. So now we've gone from nearly 30% to only 9% of the road. And there are more local road sections that look like they could be considered as county roads based on the step 1 and 2 being layered on top of each other. So again, in North Perth, we had 7 or 9, I can't remember, but it's now dropped to 3 road sections that don't meet the criteria. And we've gone from 1 road to 3 roads that may be considered as county roads. That's line 188 or line 88, 84 per 4 line 88 and road 140 for 26.5 kilometers. So you see the change as we go from the criteria to the principle. And so then we've gotten into the special considerations. So we've ended up with five of the 89 roads that don't meet criteria or satisfy principles for the county roads. And those roads networks or road sections are noted here. Perth line 56A, within North Perth specifically, Perth line 88A, which is a very small, 0.3 kilometers, I think, it's a very small section in the north end of the municipality. Perth Road 147, between Perth line 72, sorry, and Perth line 86. There's two sections of road that do not meet the criteria or satisfy the principles. And then Perth Road 151, which is again to the south. So notwithstanding that Perth Road 56A and Perth Road 147 should remain in the county road network to maintain connectivity, because if we were to drop them, they create gaps. So once we've gone through all of the criteria and the principles, we've maintained that those two roads that should stay in, and we end up with just two small 88A and 151 as being identified for transfer. And those are the county roads. So, and under the special considerations, so again, through the criteria and principled assessment, two local road sections meet the criteria and satisfy the principles for local roads, and those are down in the south, Lorne Avenue and Olone Avenue, and then so those are the ones that were identified. And then we also identified Wayland Road because of where it is in the connectivity. It's about in that south limit of the county. It made sense to recommend that for transfer, just because it vastly improves connectivity in that south portion. Now, and John spoke to this a bit, we do recognize that there's the bypass of Listowel, and Listowel is growing, and that the North Perth TMP has identified the need for that bypass. The rationalization is a little bit limited in being able to suggest a bypass route because of the data that's collected. You want to, when you're doing a bypass, you want to make sure you get it right. The rationalization process is not intended for that. That's more for if you don't have a bypass in place and you're looking for it. For instance, in this case, the rationalization wasn't able to identify which roads are being used or are currently being used to bypass Listowel. The volumes weren't making it abundantly clear. So it's difficult to, through rationalization, say we should upload this road, that road, and then identify them as a bypass. That should be done as a separate study, which John alluded to in supporting the municipality in that. You just don't want to. You want to make sure you get that assigning a bypass. You want to get it right, so it's intuitive in that it's actually adopted by motorists. If you don't get it right, and it doesn't get the uptake of people using it doesn't work, then you've put a lot of resources into something that wasn't quite the right fit. And I know the bypass. One of the big concerns is truck traffic. There's no reason that a bypass couldn't also get through traffic that does not want to stop through this dual that is on its way through to go around as well. So it's not that we don't see that there's a benefit to the Listowel bypass or bypass of Listowel. It's just not something that the rationalization process is able to identify at this point. So in the end, we had 488 kilometers of road that were to be maintained as county roads, and transfers to the municipality of 8 kilometers of county roads that were to be transferred. And just breaking that down, so transfer from the county to municipality, we had that small section again of Perth line 88A, just a very small section that doesn't really serve I think it provides access to a couple of driveways. So that doesn't satisfy the county's requirements or the county thresholds for a county road. And then down in Road 151, which is a road that isn't serving a county's purpose as well. It's also something that's been identified for transfer. And then transfer to the county from the municipality. There are the roads in Perth South that high volumes, and these ones satisfy both the criteria and through the rationalization process were identified for transfer they would support and benefit the county road network. And this is just some further breakdown of how that worked. So of the roads that were being transferred to and from. Next steps in this process, John ran through these at the beginning through his presentation. I'm not sure if we have to go through them again. Really, we're presenting the rationalization study findings to North Perth is the first, and we'll work our way through the other municipalities as well. Feedback will be compiled. County council approval will be sought to undertake phase 2. That's where it gets, as John said, that's where the rubber sort of hits the road, where you have to start looking at mechanisms to actually do this transfer and this rationalization. And that's sort of what gets here. This is just sort of an idea of potential implementation of the road rationalization network plan. Is option 1 is do nothing. Do you transfer the roads and structures in their current state? Do you improve them and then transfer them, or do you transfer them with concessions? So those are all parts of phase 2, which we have not gotten into yet. That's just sort of an idea of what that entails. And then we just bring it back in terms of the purpose of this study is to get the county road network right, to make sure that the resources that are spent efficiently in maintaining that road network and aren't spent on roads that aren't serving the county the county's the purpose of the county road network. You want to make sure they're spent on the roads that are, and that are naturally supporting and benefiting the local municipalities, because the county road network does, if it's healthy and maintained properly, that it does benefit all the municipalities within that county. And that's a lot of information in a nutshell. But if there's any questions, that's we'll do what we can to answer them.
All right, thank you. Mr. McClellan, anything else that you want to add before we turn to council for questions?
Nothing further at this time, but we are available, whether it be myself or David or even Bill, to answer any questions or to take feedback and comments as well.
Great, thank you. All right, colleagues, questions, first comments. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, and thank you, John and David, for the presentation. My question back on the presentation on step 1 of the road rationalization criteria. You have 2 urban centers, Stratford and St. Mary's. But I always thought Listowel was quite a bit bigger than St. Mary's, but we're listed as a serviced urban area, not an urban center. And I don't know who can answer that. I'm just questioning why we're only a serviced urban area in Listowel when we're the 2nd largest town, city in Perth County.
Mr. McClellan.
Maybe I can pass that over to David. Was there reason behind that, David?
Sorry, it was a bit breaking up there. Is the question why we use Stratford and St. Mary's as urban centers? Is that?
I guess the question is why isn't Listowel considered as an urban center like Stratford and St. Mary's? Listowel being bigger, more populated than St. Mary's, and growing faster.
Yeah, so the identification of those and how they got points, Listowel would have been identified through how it's identified in the official plan, which I believe is a serviced urban area rather than an urban center. So that's why that was treated that way. It was based on what we've got in the official plan. So one thing that the rationalization process doesn't do is it's not forward looking, it's not predictive, it's to look at the existing snapshot of what the road network is now. And so although Listowel might be growing, that may change things in future iterations of this process. For this one, it was identify what was in your official plan. That was our basis for it. If that gets changed in a OPA or in your official plan, if that goes up, of course, then that would be open to consideration in the future assessments of it. It just speaks to, I think, in terms of, there are points that are assigned to that. It did get points for being a serviced urban area. I believe it was 2 points. Where anything in villages, I don't believe got any. I think they got 0 points. So it was serviced urban areas and then urban centers.
Councillor Blazek?
Thank you through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. I had the exact same question, Councillor Johnson, and subsequent to that. So if this designation was changed, and I'm not proposing that we change the county official plan, so please nobody think that. Just hypothetically here. If that designation was changed for Listowel specifically, is it your opinion that any of those county road criterias would have been met and we would have transferred any of those roads?
Again, I'm going to refer to David on that one.
That's it's difficult to know offhand right now because it's there's a fairly large spreadsheet that gets involved with this. So adjusting that, there may be some that go up and down in terms of the criteria, but we're just looking at the criteria at that section at that point. So although they might satisfy it, we still have to look at it at a wider point. A lot of the roads around Listowel that were looked at, a lot of them serve sort of is almost in the purpose of they would support bypasses, but a lot of those roads were to the north and south. There's a lot of redundancy in the area that we had to consider. So although it might, adjusting Listowel up into an urban center and getting 2 extra points on that, it's hard to tell at this point how it might push things up in the criteria section, but in the principal section, which is that higher level, a lot of those are smaller road segments. They're not serving the wider network. So I'm not sure that it would change the results all that much. It might in the criteria portion, but once we apply the principal sections where we're looking at the wider road network and the county road network as a whole, those changes they may not carry forward.
Councillor Roth. Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thank you, John, and thank you, David, for the presentation. A little bit of background on that piece. Stratford and St. Mary's are completely separate from the county. The county of Perth official plan does not apply to those areas. In fact, that designation that gives them more points is the fact that there's no policy, land use planning policy that applies in the county official plan for Stratford and St. Mary's. They're totally separate. And frankly, they pay little or nothing in terms of the county roads budget, but they have significant benefits. So that's a statement. But in terms of Listowel as a service given area, as is Atwood, and as Councillor Johnson noted, growing substantially, and in the case of Listowel, substantially more than both Stratford or St. Mary's. I think the hope of this council, and me specifically, is that the road rationalization study would have some component of forward-looking nature. And when I look at my watch is talking, sorry. And when I look at the time frame for update of the road rationalization study, I think some 8 to 10 years, I believe it's stated, I'm concerned about that if our hope is that this document is going to provide guidance into the future, specifically in North Perth, regarding a bypass. So that's an opening statement I'll have. There is no doubt that the transportation master plan, which North Perth undertook, which county staff were directly involved in the undertaking and as a commenting authority. So everyone was well aware, and I believe that certainly you and others involved in this project were well aware of North Perth's growth as well as its plans to be forward-looking and to accommodate the existing traffic that we have as well as into the future where we have significant growth and development anticipated.
And I believe that any municipality, when we talk about spending money wisely and so on, needs to look at that future and needs to look at partnerships. And as we were going through our road rationalization, or our transportation master plan, the hope that we had in discussions with Paradigm Engineering, that was our engineer that we were looking forward with the transportation master plan, is that the county would be a partner going forward. And I'm glad to see that those words were spoken in terms of perhaps a separate process. But if this project has taken the better part of 4 to 5 years to undertake, I don't believe that this council wants to wait 4 to 5 years to start planning. I think the expectation within our community is that we're going to have something actually built within that framework. I believe those are not my words necessarily. I think it's been spoken around this council table that we are looking at specific action in that respect. So that's, I don't want to go too much further. Other than this, I am concerned about the potential download from the county of Perth line 88 to North Perth when that's at main corners. And I actually happen to be up in that neck of the woods today. It's a very short road. There's one driveway from the farm that comes onto that road. It's 50 vehicles per day. But the issue is, from my perspective, is that as the county knows, is under study currently with Huron County, and I don't believe it would be appropriate that we move forward with any change of jurisdiction until such time as we have the findings of that report, which is much anticipated. Because as the county knows, as we know, unfortunately, that's an intersection which has had fatalities, and thankfully not really recently, but as we went through there today, and our daughter does travel there regularly during the school term. She teaches at Howick, and we've told her ever since she started to drive, be careful at this intersection. And why a great big stop sign that's lit and so on can't just ignore it, I'm not sure. Nevertheless, accidents happen, and we have to do whatever we can to make it even more safe. So I'll leave that concern through this council table as well as to staff. And I want to thank you again for the work on this, and hopefully looking forward to much good work in the future as we look to implement our transportation master plan, specifically on the truck bypass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anthony. Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. I'd like to thank the county for their support in terms of working on this project. I have to tell you that I am disappointed by the criteria that was used in terms of looking at the rationalization of the roads. One of my concerns that was not mentioned is that this community is heavily serviced by another urban center, which of course is outside of this county, and that's the Kitchener-Waterloo region. That's where the majority of our trucks come and service our business and our commercial and our industries, both accessing services for those companies and also moving products back and forth. And nothing was shared about that and how that impacts not only the current county system but other roads in this area that those trucks should be servicing. I'm also quite confused about how there's no consideration around parallel routes. Why can't we look at parallel routes? Because people will choose other parallel routes to avoid heavy traffic. And those parallel routes are not considered at all, and I'm very concerned about that. In terms of parallel routes, that's also our discussions around a bypass. Honestly, a bypass will be a parallel route to Highway 86, which is a county road. So my question is, how will any kind of bypass be considered in the future? Because at the end of the day, it's parallel. And really, it should take on an incredible amount of traffic if it's going to be a bypass to help ease some current county roads too. So that's my current question. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Todd, maybe I'll start off to attempt to answer, and David,
we can correct me if I'm if I'm incorrect. As far as the criteria that is chosen, that was done so by a committee of council. Obviously, with the help and assistance of Tatham Engineering, and as well looking at other road rationalizations that were done. I think David had those in his presentation there. So that criteria and then the weighting is chosen by a committee. Just so you are aware, that criteria and weighting and threshold does not have to be the same in the next iteration of the road rationalization process. So that criteria can be different the next time round. But that was what was chosen uh, for this iteration. It is in keeping with many other road rationalization processes done in other municipalities in Ontario. As far as the parallel goes, again, that goes into, I believe, redundancy again. Um, so we see that quite often in around Perth County and parallel to the Kings Highways that are here. So, David, if I got that right, the criteria does sort of consider those parallel roadways?
Yeah, so the parallel, like you mentioned, is more to do with redundancy, where you have two roads that are very close together, where the service sort of gets split. People are taking one road or another. What ends up happening is you have very low volumes on both roads, where you want to sort of direct people to the most appropriate road. It doesn't. Bypasses are a little different. Bypasses are not necessarily parallel. They're to get around, almost like a barrier service. You want to get around it, whether that barrier is a downtown or a congested area. So it's the bypass is separate. They don't lose points. If it was to be a bypass, it wouldn't lose points for parallel, because it's not technically parallel. It's to get around a concern. So the purpose of the parallel is more, you don't want redundant roads. You don't want two roads next to each other that are serving the same purpose, where it can be better served by one in terms of resources spent to maintain that road and the service that it provides.
And through you, Mayor. Further to that, indeed, one of the criteria was bypass, and I believe a number of the roads that were included from North Perth as a solution did get that bypass point in the criteria assessment. Anyone else? Councillor Johnson.
Another question, but first my usual statement on 147. The reason it doesn't meet county standards is because it's rougher than most of our gravel roads, especially the last 2.5 northern miles of it. Most of the traffic in 147 is turning west at line 81 because the speed limit must be reduced on the other end of 147 because of the roughness. When was the last time any roads were uploaded to the county? Or how long has it been?
Through the mayor, we did upload a section of Whalen Line with Middlesex County back in 2020, or we maybe completed that in 2021. Prior to that, we did a road swap with Perth East for a section of Perth Line 36 and Perth Line 37 in the Stratford area. I think the Whalen Line process, or the Whalen Line, did bring out the need for this road rationalization process in 2020. Councillor Jordan?
Thanks, Petersburg. Thanks for the report. This might be a question for CEO Snell. So line 88A, I believe North Perth already maintains that. Did we always just send a bill to the county, or was that a handshake deal, or do you even know? I'm just curious.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but it was a very short section road that we probably just grade. I can certainly get more information back to council on that one.
I was just curious.
Anyone else with questions or comments at this point? So I think, okay, CEO's now.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Certainly as one of the municipalities that was pushing heavily to have some study done on the county road and the road rationalization. I think the disappointment from the staff standpoint is this report does not provide us any opportunity or forward looking or forecast of how we get some of our heavily used local roads to become county roads. Most of that as a result is of congestion on our current county road systems. So we have 6.1 kilometers of pass our criteria assessment and 26.5 that passed the principal assessment in North Perth that could be considered county roads, but yet they're dropped off from going any further, but yet there's no indication as to how we get those to um, be further down the road to be looked at as county roads. So I think that's the missing piece in this report is we have over 30 kilometers of roads that should be looked at to become county roads, and they may not meet certain standards, but we need to plan with the county to go forward how we get those roads to be uploaded. Because these roads, if not uploaded, are going to have significant costs on the North Perth taxpayer, and the North Perth taxpayer should not be responsible for regional road traffic.
Thank you. I want to add my own sort of thought on something that I heard, which was the sort of 8-year window before we look at this again. And to me, that feels completely unacceptable. And the reason, and I think what the approach needs to be is that we need a process that is an ongoing thing, not a punctuated endpoint when we do a study, but a set of criteria that automatically are triggered. And when they're triggered, it's like, okay, now it's time to upload this road to the county. And I'm not sure that we're seeing that work yet, but I think we need it. There's no bloody way. I mean, I won't be mayor in 8 years, but there's no bloody way that we should wait for 8 years to find out what the next round looks like, and then find and with no insult intended, find the benchmarks have moved. You know, the goalposts have moved. So I think that one of the concerns that I bring to the table tonight is, from my view, is what is the process that is an automatic, continuing process that looks at these roads and says, the time has come, here's the trigger, we've met whatever the criteria are, and now the discussion has to begin between any of the lower tiers and the county on these matters. I don't know how complex it is. I understand that at least one of the jurisdictions in our regional neighborhood has something like that, where there's a set of standards that get used and applied. And when the lower tier raises the flag and says, here we are, we need to do something, the process unfolds and unfolds promptly, not 8 years later. So I have that concern, certainly, in looking at this report myself. Anyone else? Councillor Johnston?
So how do we take that a step further? And going on with what Chris said, how do we, sitting around this council, come up with a plan, John, to work? You know, if we're going to look at the bypass roads, you know, and it should be a collaboration, because eventually, I'm thinking most of those roads are going to end up as county roads. I believe once they're improved and constructed, you know, the numbers are going to be there, and the wait list is growing. So how do we, as a council, without pushing money at consultants again, how do we come up with a collaboration between North Perth, getting back to what Mayor Todd and Chris have said, and John, you reiterated it in your opening statement, you know, about our bypass and working with us. So how do we as a council get to that point? I don't know if that came out right, but I might have talked in a circle.
And let me ask one more question, if I might, and then we can perhaps let John or the team respond. CEO Snell, I think this is for you actually. Have our staff carefully looked through the county's report and formulated some response to it, or is that an ongoing work or process that we believe needs to have still continue?
Our staff certainly have reviewed the report. Just because on our staff we are not traffic engineers, we are seeking additional third-party opinion on some of the findings of the rational road rationalization. So it would be my recommendation to the staff would be at least bringing back a report to this council, um, just to provide some more local insight on the road rationalization study from a North Perth perspective, if that's the council's wish.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Andreessen's hand, then Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Um, a lot of this conversation, especially about bypass as well, is about easing congestion and easing traffic flow. My question is about what considerations are on the table in terms of looking at Highway 86 and easing the traffic flow there from the county perspective, because that is a county road coming into this urban area, and it's a very big concern for all residents in this area that you who use that as well as truck traffic. What what can be what are the considerations that are on the table for working on that road in terms of even widening as well? Thank you.
Okay, I think I promised John and team that they could answer some questions. So you've heard a couple of questions from a few of us now. I should give you a chance to have a say, I think. Huh?
Through you, Mayor. I'm not sure what's sort of comment or feedback and what's been a question here. So maybe just to help me out with that, maybe the answer you're seeking. I may not have the answer for you this evening, but certainly I'm taking this back so that we can provide county council in our next report all of this feedback that we are getting.
I mean, I think one of the clear questions came from Councillor Andreessen, which is with regards to 86. Did this report consider the issues of 86? And you know, to sort of echo Councillor Andreessen's concern, I mean, that road's volume is increasing pretty substantially from what I can tell. Add winter mix to it, and we have a lot of potential for problems. So let me let the team answer that if they might, because maybe there is a quick answer to that question. Maybe it's just that you need to take that back to the team and get back to us.
Through you, Mayor. Certainly, what's been asked here is not really looked at as far as through the road rationalization process. However, we do look at impacts and safety on Line 86 constantly. Certainly with winter maintenance, we're well aware of the comments and things like that. And again, we bring all of these concerns to county council in our reports as far as our level of service with, say, our winter maintenance and things of that nature. So we're well aware of that. I also heard, we are faced, all of us, with potential impacts in the maintenance of these roadways. And certainly when you get a roadway like Perth Line 86 and the volume of traffic, your classification is Class 2. 21 years ago when it started, the county was the only Class 2 roadway in Perth County. Now we have several. And how do you keep maintaining that? Have our winter maintenance operations changed over the 21 years? I can tell you no. The hours have not changed. We have become more efficient and effective through other ways, and that's what we're constantly trying to do. So we know we have major impacts. Certainly in the north end, we have other issues such as we do not have a base of operations in this area. And we rely heavily on our boundary partners for maintenance of these roadways under our boundary road agreements. So we do have future impacts that we're constantly looking at on any of these roadways within the county and the county road network.
Cool. Thank you. Other Councillor Rothwell, I think
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And so we've talked about winter, so I'll talk about it right now. So
one of the issues that we have many people within our community that rely on our roads to get to and from is a significant number of people that are commuting. And most people understand that the county's hours of operations are longer in terms of winter maintenance than our local municipality. And the expectation that many, not all, but many that understand the county road network is that those hours of operations will allow them to leave earlier and expect or hope that the road is going to be out and in good shape as much as possible. We have, and I can talk, our public works folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but some people within our community think that every road should be maintained to the same level as a county road. I can tell you that we don't, and we can't. We don't have those hours of operation. So, but we do have a number of roads, and I'll just talk about Road 158, for example, which Marine Ave South as it comes out of Listowel, does in effect operate as a part of the commuter shed of people leaving Listowel to get them to point south. And it is not maintained to the same level as Perth Line 72 or Perth Line 86 or Highway 23, but people continue to use that, and it creates a problem of safety. And when safety in terms of winter maintenance and so on isn't, well, I certainly didn't see it as part of the 8 criteria, but it should be when it's 4 months of the year. That we need to really look at that as a component part, and I am going to suggest that we really should be looking at that, and especially after the year that we had, because we were lulled into thinking that winter was the thing of the past, but clearly the winter of 2024-25 came back and reminded us that it's still can negatively impact what we think is important and what we can do. So I'll leave it at that. But just know that our hope, my hope, is that the ongoing discussions will have to happen much more rapidly and collegially as we can to move forward to realize what we believe is an appropriate plan into the future to accommodate our growth and development within North Perth, and to make sure that we're able to get people in good safely where they need to be. And I think that's everyone's drive as we move forward together here. And I'm going to just say again, I believe that this is one of the downfalls of this particular process is that the expectation of some of us is that this was going to be forward-looking to give us an eye into the future. And hearing what was said here tonight is that we were either mistaken or just put too much hope in that. But I hope that through a separate process we can move forward much quicker than the 8 to 10 year revision of revisiting of the plan. Thank you.
Thanks. Any feedback on? No, that's fine. Colleagues, anyone else with final questions or comments here? We have a resolution that staff has prepared for us. You heard a suggestion from CAS now pertaining to staff in North Perth bringing back a report with some response from our team and perhaps even a peer review of this in the process. Anyone wanting to consider a resolution other than the one that the staff has prepared for us? Councillor Mazik?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kisenberg. I think that it is important that we do ask the staff to come back with a report as had been discussed. We're also wondering if it would be appropriate to ask staff to work with the county to create a standardized process, much like you had sort of alluded to, for determining when individual roads reach county criteria and the process for transferring roadways as and when this criteria is met on an individual basis. Or is it more appropriate to wait until the report comes back? Either way, I think both of those things are really important to do.
I think if we gave direction to staff to prepare a report that represents a North Perth response and give them some allowance to reach out to professional expertise to support them, but ultimately the concern about policy would get addressed in the report. I see Deputy CEO nodding her head, so I think that's likely to happen if people are comfortable with that. All right. So do we have a mover? We're going to make an amendment, I think, then to the resolution that we actually consider, which is to direct staff to prepare a report drawing on resources that they may need from professional experts and considering the policy implications of these matters in bringing a report back to us. Anyone have anything else they want to add to this? Okay, collaborative resolution and development works. All right. Can I call for a number? Councillor Glazek, you move that. Councillor Andreessen, you'll second that. Thank you. Any discussion or debate further? I'm not seeing any. Clerk's table kind of with us. All right, let's have that vote. And that is carried. All the gentlemen on screen in the chamber, thank you for attending tonight and helping us receive a report on this and think through some of the implications. And you'll receive some more from us, obviously, in due course. Thanks. All right. I hate to say it, but bio break calls me, so I think we need about a 5-minute break at this point before we hear the next item on our agenda. Let's take that break. Test 1, 2, test.
It's in the work channel there. You know,
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Are we good to go? All right, thank you. We're going to resume our meeting after a brief break. Come on, folks. Too much social time. We like each other too much. All right. Let's take a look next at an item for Development and Protective Services Department is item 9.2. On the agenda is item 9.2.1. Council is presented with a report on a draft plan of subdivision for residential development project in the hamlet of Trowbridge in the Elma Ward. And before us tonight, as often is the case for planning files, is Nathan Garland from Perth County Planning. Welcome again, Mr. Garland. Take it.
Thank you, Mayor Giesberg, and good evening, North Perth Council. I'm here to present on a short presentation on behalf of the Planet Subdivision. It's NP 2203. The owners are by Mania Dairy Limited on behalf of John Byman, and the applicant and agent is Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Scott Patterson. The location, as noted, is Concession 3, Part Lot 6, Elmo Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and the date noted. Just as a reference to the location is in Trowbridge, so just outside Listowel, the Elmo Ward, as many of you know well. So this is a smaller subdivision on the side of things from what we're typically used to seeing, but it's still a subdivision nonetheless because it doesn't require the assumption of a road as well as the creation of several lots along there. So they are proposing 16 lots along a currently being built or unopened portion of road that they would be building in the future. The lots are on both sides. They would be serviced privately, both privately by septic and by wells. So they would be individually serviced lots, 60 of them total. I just did a note too as well. They are very similar, almost identical to the existing lots that are there now. So it's almost like a mirror image of those lots backing onto that. So it is a very, very similar design and style. This is just a subdivision map we give council. So this is slightly different and a little bit annotated than we typically see. So we are currently at the draft plan stage. There's not a typical zoning process required. We can discuss that. However, there's just a lift of holding that would be required in the future. The property and area is currently designated Hamlet Village Residential with a holding zone on there. So that's why you're not seeing a zoning bylaw come to you today. It's just the plan of subdivision for your consideration. In the future, there would be should council choose to support it if it is accepted, then there would be a subsequent lift of hold to come forward to council at that time to lift that. So at the very start of it, it will come back to council for the consideration of the hold should council choose to support it. Just the aerial image. I didn't include a little excerpt just from the zoning schedule or the zoning piece that comes forward, but the area is currently zoned HVR-H1, so it is the Hamlet Village Residential Zone. It does have a holding provision that's subject to a future site plan agreement, or sorry, subdivision agreement, that lifting zone would be taken away. One thing I do want to note for council's consideration, I might say this again a second time, is that this area has already been included in the official plans. There's no official plan amendment. I know we talked a lot about the previous plans of subdivisions coming forward with the new draft official plan. So this has been already included within the town of Shore, the village of Trowbridge, previously in the existing plan, the existing official plan. So this is already a settlement area within the existing official plan. So that's why you're not seeing an official plan amendment. It wasn't included, per se, within the growth allocation that came forward as part of the Watson study for this. This was already included in designated area for this. Some supporting information justification that has been provided. So there was a planning justification report. There was an archaeological assessment that did clearly target the site for archaeological resources. There was a functional servicing report. That was part of the delay in just updating that and providing some amendments. So that's just why we're coming around to it now. So it was originally submitted in June 2022, or completed in 2022. And there were some additional updates, and it was finally satisfied March 2025. A geotechnical report and hydrogeological report were both provided dated June 2022. Those look at the septic and well water for the site, so that addresses the septic services just to make sure it's safe and sustainable. It won't impact both the proposed houses and existing houses, as well as the hydrogeological report that looks at the water. So that addresses any kind of water concern both with the existing houses and proposed future houses. So that addresses both of those concerns in the satisfactory. I should note as well, too, the geotechnical report does provide some comments around the amount of fill just to be brought in. The site is a little bit lower, so there will be some cutting and filling required just to balance that out, just to kind of improve the soil conditions and provide for septic services there. So in the draft and conditions noted, there are 22 listed. I will highlight just a few of the larger ones. There is the subdivision agreement. That's a fairly standard condition that goes to the municipality. MVCA, Canada Post, and utilities, both Enbridge and I believe Bell has also requested a condition. Parkland dedication, or in this case, a repayment consistent with the parkland dedication bylaw. There's a fencing and lawn demarcation requirements. So there's the agricultural lands at the back of there. There would be some fencing or demarcation of that area just to separate the two of them. I think I will note this final one. This is a little bit different. It is a unique one to this kind of subdivision. There is a requirement for municipal drain improvement to the outlet. Part of this site does outlet through a municipal drain, so that's required to be upgraded and improved to provide for the plan of subdivision, which would be addressed to the applicant. A couple of pictures just for your consideration. So that picture to the top left, that's the future culvert upgrade crossing. So they will be looking at upgrading that crossing to provide the outlet for the functionality and the road work on the site. And then the image looking west along the future George Street. So that's on the north end of the property there. So that's looking at the future George Street extension through there. Couple pictures as well too, looking on the future Patrick Street extension. That's on the south side of the site, so that would be extending past the existing Patrick Street development, and then just looking to the west as well too. So just looking in both directions of that site for the future extension. So for any comments and supporting information, BM Ross has provided comments that they're in support of the application, and they've provided some additional comments to be addressed through drafting additions and final submission of stormwater and subdivision agreement. Enbridge has requested servicing easement, as has Hydro as well too. Two neighbors had called, and I think the report notes one, so my apologies. Actually, two neighbors just had called and requested just additional documentation and information, but no concerns were expressed.
Policy summary, so it is within the county of first official plan. So as noted, this is within the official plan settlement area for Trowbridge. There is no official plan amendment required. It's been included as part of that. There would be a future lifting of the holding for the zoning, but the zoning does currently designate the property as Hamlet Village residential with that holding provision. It is required to return to North Perth Council subsequent to addressing the subdivision agreement. It would come back to a lift and hold, which is a fairly straightforward application under consideration. And then, as noted, lands have been designated within the Trowbridge settlement area. So there is no new settlement lands coming in. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the municipality of North Perth Council support planning subdivision NP 2203, subject to the conditions listed in the report, and forward to Perth County Council for approval. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Thanks, Mr. Garland. Very efficient as always. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Nathan, would both Patrick and George Street be extended to the new street?
Through the mayor, they would both be extended up to the point of Albert Street that's being constructed there. So it would only be a partial construction, typically not the entire way up to the edge of those blocks. It would be extended up to Albert, or I'm not sure if they finalized Albert, but up to that new street and then turned over. Yes.
Anyone else? Not seeing any hands waving at me. All right. We have a resolution then as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a report dated August 11, 2025, entitled Draft Plan of Subdivision NP 22-03, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommends to County Council that the application for draft plan of subdivision number NP 22-03 by Bimania Dairy Limited, affecting the lands described as Part Lot 6, Concession 3, Elma Ward, be approved, subject to the following conditions. There are 22. Councillor Johnston is not going to ask me to read them all. Everyone can read in the reports. Colleagues, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Rothman, seconded by Councillor Moore and myself. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have a vote. And that is carried. Congratulations, neighbors and friends. All right, let's turn to an item that is brought by the Corporate Services Department and representing the work of Council's Governance Committee under Section 9.3 of our agenda. Item 9.3.1, Council is presenting recommendations to amend the so-called procedure bylaw, bylaw 106-2023, which governs the proceedings of Council and its committees and boards. The work brought tonight targets Section 15 of that bylaw with review by the Governance Committee and staff on the subject of delegations and proposals for amendments and release of new materials. I see that our clerk, Sarah Carter, is queued up in the podium, and I'll turn the floor over to her for a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, through the council. Following feedback received by staff about the repetitive nature of recent delegations, the Governance Review Committee completed a thorough review of North Perth's current procedures related specifically to delegations. When investigating practices in other municipalities, it was evident that the rules vary greatly from municipality to municipality. After careful consideration, the Governance Review Committee proposes the following changes to Section 15 of the Procedure Bylaw. The addition of 15C, which identifies subject matter that is not permitted to be discussed during a delegation. The addition of 15F, which introduces a limit to repetitive delegations. And an update to Section 15E to allow delegations to have 10 minutes for their presentation, followed by questions from council. In addition, staff, in consultation with the Governance Review Committee, have also prepared a guide for delegations, which was included in tonight's agenda package. If approved by council, this will be publicly posted on the municipal website and shared with all delegations in advance of their attendance at a council meeting. So with that, I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Clerk Carter. We may want to draw Simon's attention to the microphone. It's sounding like you're in a swimming pool or something, which is not great. All right. Colleagues, questions, first comments? seems like a good battery of work. I appreciate the work that our colleagues who serve on that committee are doing. I think the only thing that I have some vague reservations about, and the clerk has kind of reassured me today, is if we had 20 delegations on the same topic on the same night, we might want to do something about that. But it does appear that there's a little bit of leeway for the head of council to make some decisions about that. So I think that will probably allow us to effectively manage those kinds of circumstances. Maybe invite them all into a room and we have some kind of arm wrestling contest to support the approach to that. All right, so I have a resolution then for our consideration as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the proposed amendments to Section 15 of Bylaw 106-2023 and that staff be directed to post the guide for delegations on the municipal website and provide a copy to all registered delegations in advance of their attendance at a council meeting. Moved by Councillor Dreesen, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you again. Good work. We appreciate that we're modernizing our processes in this term, and it's been a wonderful body of work that's been delivered. All right, for item 10, does any member of council wish to ask for a report from staff or a committee? I'm not seeing any hands wave at me. For item 11, we have two items of correspondence beyond those already shared in the consent agenda for council's disposition. For 11.1, I must relinquish the chair to the deputy mayor to do a declared pecuniary interest by me in this item. So I believe I'll leave the resolution for you, Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Yes, and of correspondence to 11.1, please, for the record, note that Councillor Mayor Kasenberg and Councillor Andrews have declared. Is there any other council members wish to declare conflict on this? Seeing none, we've read it. The resolution reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from United Way Perth Huron as follows. The use of 14 parking stalls in the municipal parking lot between TD Bank and Ward and Up the Grove beginning on the evening of September the 11th until 4 p.m. on September 12th. 2. Use of Character Square from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on September 12th. And 3. Delivery and pickup by North Perth staff of sufficient traffic barricades to block off 14 stalls on the south side of the aforementioned parking lot. Moved by Councillor Duncan, second by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? Oh, let's have a vote. It's different at the county. I'm sorry about that. Let's have that vote. I'll get used to it. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We didn't even get to finish a cookie, so I'm go longer. Find fighters to complain. Yeah, back to the test. That one's working. All right, I always like these anyway, so All right, for item 11.2, a request has been received from the Listowel Junior Cyclones Booster Club to declare a series of dates corresponding with home hockey games of the Listowel Cyclones as municipally significant events under definitions provided to by AGCO to facilitate obtaining a special occasion permit. Staff has prepared a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth designates the Listowel Junior Cyclones 2025-26 home games listed below and any potential 2025-26 playoff home games on dates to be determined at the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex as municipally significant events for the purposes of the Listowel Junior Cyclones Booster Club, Inc. obtaining a special occasion permit from the AGCO. And the dates are September 12th, 19th, and 27th, October 3rd, 17th, 24th, 26th, 31, November 7th, 31st, that Halloween, that's going to be an interesting night. November 7th, 16th, 21st, 30th, December 5th, 12th, and 19th, January 4th, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, February 6th, 13th, 16th, 27th, and March 6th, Lonely March. Hopefully it's not a lonely March, they're in the playoffs. So I call for a mover. Moved by Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Kellum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, at this point, we turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight, we have 4 bylaws for consideration. The enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. I think we're going to clean one out for Councillor Johnston, right? I think we'll do it first. So let's cleave out the one which is related to the drain. That's the first one, right? All right. Resolution as follows. Bylaw 78-2025 be read a first and second time and be provisionally adopted. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Anstey, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote if we're ready. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's bring Councillor Johnston back in. And our next resolution is as follows. The following bylaws are hereby passed. 76-2025 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 106-2023 as amended. 77-2025 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 147-2022 as amended. And 79-2025 being a bylaw to establish a highway. Can I call for a mover? Thank you, Councillor Nerdum, seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. There we go. Okay, so we have 10 accounted for, and that is carried. Thank you. All right, let's turn then to item 13 on our agenda. Does any councillor wish leave to issue notice of motion for our next meeting or a future meeting? I'm not seeing any indication of that. So let's turn to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be a benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Colleagues, you're reading it for me. We celebrated quite a fine Listowel 150. I think it was a great event, and the community was very appreciative of all the work that the committee had done. I had meant to bring all their names today, and I did not do that, so it's a bad Todd moment. But upshot was that we all owe a deep appreciation to the committee and to all the volunteers and to staff who supported throughout the process. Mr. Newell, I know that you earned some gray hairs, so welcome to the club, or the continuing welcome to the club. Thank you so much for all who participated. It was great to see many of you at the events, And I think it was a fine weekend. It showed who we are. It showed us that we are a pretty successful and effective community, and it went as well. Special note, I will say thank you very much to Mr. Spoltor from Spotty Dog Productions and his work on the Hayloft Festival with his team, Sue Ruska and many others, but I know that Sue was quite instrumental in that. And that event also did us quite proud. I checked in afterwards with police just to sort of see are there any problems, and I got no significant reports. So I was quite pleased to hear that it did as well as it did. And the audience size, while variably reported, was substantial. Let's put it that way. So again, to everyone who was involved, my heartiest congratulations, and let's do it again. I'm not sure when, but let's do it again. All right. Anyone else? Okay. We're at agenda item 15. We have two items to be considered in a closed session of council. I'm going to read the resolution that will allow us to go there and justify our action here is as follows. The council proceeds in camera at 9:31 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding property described as Plan 411, Blocks A and B, Plan 448, Part 5, RP 44R 1005, Part 1, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding property described as Plan 44M72, Block 73. Can I call for a mover on this? Moved by Councillor Anstey, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, so those who have not been invited to stay in the room should exit the chamber at this point. We should reconfigure the audio visual settings, close the doors to the chamber, and our closed session. Until that point,
Test, test.
All right, we are reconvening into our regular open council meeting regarding item 16 on our agenda. Council did discuss the matters identified in our enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of council and did give staff direction pertaining to the matters plural that were considered, the essence of which will remain confidential at this time for the reasons stipulated in our enablement of closed session. I need to step out now as a result of my earlier declared pecuniary interest. Deputy Mayor Kellum is going to do me a great service and handle the next item on our agenda. All right, colleagues, for our bylaws that touch on provincial priorities considered and passed at tonight's meeting, I am in support and will not execute a veto. This information is provided to the clerk as part of my required duties as mayor. We have completed the deliberation and taken action on a whole range of business that came before us tonight. It is thus appropriate for us to consider a motion for adjournment, and it reads as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 10:31 p.m. to meet for general council business on Monday, August 25th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Blazek, seconded by Councillor Anstead. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Colleagues, until our next regular council meeting on Monday, August 25th at 7 p.m., this council is adjourned.